Yeah, let's just no fill and the line now. Let's just make that a little thicker. That's a row. That is a row.
Yes.
Make an observation about that row. Say something about it based on what we have been discussing.
Um.
Great.
Well,
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Let him talk. Let him talk, please. Let him talk. Mention the word elements. Say something about that row and mention the word elements.
eh, two elements.
Exactly. That row has two elements. 1, 2. You see?
But if you look at it like that, the other one has two as well, which would be the 6 and the 2
But remember now, when we're talking about the second matrix now, we're not talking about row. What are we talking about? We have to,
columns.
yes, we have to associate the word second with columns.
So when we're talking about the first matrix, it would be the row, and the second one
Exactly,
would be talking about the columns.
exactly. And it's the
Oh,
elements therein. You understand the elements therein.
oh,
Right. The elements therein. Okay. And now let me just oh yeah, so that is in blue. Okay. Okay, let me just carry this. So a color code in there. So I'll leave that in blue.
so when we go on to do the assignment, and when we see, for example, we see a 3 by 2 to a 5 by 2, or any other smaller matrix to a bigger one, we should
Count the
just write.
elements. You have to just count the elements. So let's analyze them. Let's analyze them. And then what are you talking about first?
So I have a question.
Yeah.
Um, a 2 by 2 and a 2 by 2 would work, but what would be the size of it? A 2 by 2? Like when you, what would be the product?
The product will be a 2 by 2.
Thanks.
Because and why would it be a 2 by 2?
Because both of
Both of them would
elements
have a
is
two by
2.
two.
Yeah, look,
Both
see, look,
columns and both yeah.
both columns. Why will the result be a 2 by 2 here?
Both columns and both rows are two.
That
Have two elements.
that's how you would say it. Have two
Or
elements.
the first row of the first column, the first row of the first matrix has two. Second of the second matrix has two.
Wait, so
Yes, I listening, you know.
so so that means looking at G, even if oh, you came up on the assignment G, yeah. So even if you see in matrix size, it would be 2 by 2 to a how's that, a 3 by 3,
No, that's a 2 by 3.
2 by 3. Oh, sorry, yeah, 2 by 3. Um, because of the elements, and the first one, the elements being 2, and the second one being 2 as well, they can still work with each other in
Yeah, but when you say
multiplication.
the first one, two elements, you're missing an important word there, you know. I don't know why you're afraid to say the word. That's what I'm wondering.
The row,
The
the row,
row of the first.
the row of the first is two
It's
elements,
important to mention that word, you know.
and
The
the
row of the
column of the
first and
second.
the column of the second, they both have two elements. So multiplication
So they
is possible.
okay.
Now, what would be the size now? Now, when you're talking about the size now, I was listening to his result, why it will be a 2 by 2, and I wasn't so satisfied with the result. Because when you're talking about the size, you're not talking about elements anymore. Please take a note of that. When you're talking about size of the result, when you're talking about size, there is no mention about elements. Take a look at it. When you're determining the size of the product, you are not to mention the word elements. Elements is when you're talking about if multiplication is possible, because you want to know who to match and who to match. You want to know if you to match 5 going to match, 5 going to match, 4 going to match. So you're talking about elements. But when you're talking about size, you're not talking about elements. You're talking about the number of rows now of the first and the number of elements of a number of columns of the second. Okay.
Ah,
So why will a 2 by 2 give you another 2 by 2?
because the the row of the first is has
Because,
two elements.
but I just said when you're talking about size, you don't mention the word elements.
Wait, repeat the question, sir.
Why will a 2 by 2 give you another 2 by 2? Look at
Because it
there,
has
look at there, look at there. Oh, look at what I'm going to do. I'm going to snip this. Now
they
listen to
both
that, listen to that. That's why now you all have to continue the discussion after the session is over for that to stay. If discussion does not continue, then you're just going to forget everything we discussed there. And the way you discuss it, you have to probably get a study partner and talk to the person about it. you know that's why you have different, you see, that's why you go to university and people in groups and you see them, they're talking that because they're discussing what the
so
so don't just come
two.
back to the next session without discussing it. Why are we going to get another 2 by 2 there based on what is said here?
Because so they both
Don't please try not to we are not ready to take shortcut yet. Speak in complete
okay.
sentence, use words that are
The
there.
first the first matrix
Right.
the first matrix has two rows and two
Exactly.
columns,
No,
and
no,
the
no, no,
second
no,
matrix
no.
has two
Don't
rows.
mention the word columns when you're talking about the first matrix.
Okay, the first matrix has two rows and the
Right.
second matrix has two columns.
Exactly. Exactly. You see? Exactly. Now look at what we're going to do. We have a little time left. Look at what I'm going to do. Because I know we can multiply already. It's just to do some analysis.
So as long as, let's say you mention, as long as the is the same row. Okay, the row for the first, randomly speaking, the row for the first
Let's talk
is
about this
two.
one. Let's talk about that one. Is multiplication possible?
Yes,
Why?
Yes, sir.
Why? No, let him speak.
because
Let him speak. Why? Let him speak. Yes, Darren, I know. Let him speak.
the row of the first
No,
has
no, I'm talking about is
the
multiplication. Yeah, the roughly first says
yes, the row of the first has two elements,
exactly one, two.
and the row the, the second one, or the column,
Right. The column of the second.
the column of the second has two elements as well.
Right. So multiplication is possible. Agreed?
Yes, sir.
One, two, one, two. What will be the size of the product?
Size the size of the product would be a two by two, sir, because the column of the row of the first has, well, it has two rows,
Yeah, so say it
and
properly. Say it properly.
the first matrix
Exactly.
has two rows,
Right.
and the second matrix has two columns. Well, no, three columns. Sorry,
Right. We all
there's two.
listening,
Two by two.
exactly. So repeat yourself again. Go start from the beginning.
The row of the first matrix has two columns, and
No, no, no. Take your time. Take your time. Take your time. Look at
The
this there
row,
written there. Look at this written there. Take your time.
the
That's why I
first
say that's why I
matrix.
said the learning not happening now, you're getting information, and for that to stay now, you have to continue discussing that all through the weekend. Talk to somebody about it. Discuss it to yourself. Listen to the video again. Listen to yourself speak again, because that's been recorded and you will listen to it again. So one more time. What
So
will
the
be the
first
size of the product?
first matrix has two rows,
Exactly. Take your time.
and the second matrix has three columns,
Right. So what will be the product?
2 by 3.
2 by 3. Exactly. You have to, you see, there are two rows in the first matrix, and the second matrix has 3 columns. You see, that's why it doesn't really use whiteboard. You see how it's a little clumsy. Okay, so you have 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, a 2 by 3. So always associate the word row with first and column with second. When you're talking about multiply, if multiplication is possible, then you talk about number of elements. You're counting the elements. 1, 2, 1, 2. Oh, multiplication is possible because 2 elements in the row of the first, 2 elements in the column of the second. So multiplication is possible. What about the
So
side?